The cry cut through the Dakota prairie like a blade on that sweltering July afternoon in 1876. Wyatt Harmon pulled hard on his horse's reins, his weathered face creasing with concern. He'd heard wolves howl and rattlesnakes hiss during his years on the frontier, but nothing like this desperate wail. Squinting against the harsh sunlight, he turned his buckskin gelding copper toward the sound, about 50 yards to his left through the tall grass. What he found made his heart clench. A young woman lay motionless, her arms still curled protectively around a small bundle. The infant's face was red from crying, tiny fists waving in distress. A spilled carpet bag lay beside them on the hard-packed earth. Wyatt dismounted quickly, approaching cautiously with his hand near his revolver. The woman didn't respond to his call, but her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. She was burning with fever. The baby's cries were growing weaker, which worried Wyatt more than loud wails. He recognized that particular sound from cattle drives when they'd encountered desperate settler families. Hunger. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his worn leather coat and lifted the baby, noting how light the child felt in his calloused hands. The infant couldn't have been more than a few months old. Wyatt's mind raced. Clearwater was at least 15 miles away, and there was no sign of a wagon or horse. How had they come to be here alone? He wrapped the child in his coat, then lifted the unconscious woman across Copper's back. The July sun beat down mercilessly as he began the long walk toward town, scanning constantly for threats. By the time Clearwater's buildings appeared on the horizon, the sun was descending. Wyatt headed straight for Doc Harrison's place, ignoring curious stares. The doctor's wife, Martha, appeared, immediately taking charge of the baby while Doc Harrison examined the woman. Severely dehydrated with high fever, the doctor reported. Likely influenza. She'll need constant care for several days. Will she make it? Wyatt asked, his voice rough with concern. She's young and appears healthy otherwise. With proper care, she has a good chance. Quote, Martha returned with the infant sucking eagerly at a makeshift bottle. She's a hungry little thing. A girl, no more than 3 months old. Wyatt knew he couldn't simply walk away. After arranging accommodations at Mrs. Landry's boarding house and hiring Molly Jenkins to help with their care, he finally headed back to the Rocking H Ranch. Mr. Henderson, the ranch owner, was understanding when Wyatt explained the situation. You did right by those folks, Wyatt. Take tomorrow morning off if you need to check on them. As Wyatt lay in his narrow cabin bed that night, his thoughts kept returning to the woman and child. Something about their vulnerability had stirred protective instincts he hadn't felt since losing his own family to cholera 15 years earlier. He'd been 17 when the disease swept through their Kansas farm, leaving him the sole survivor. Morning found Wyatt heading back to town earlier than necessary. At Doc Harrison's, he learned the woman's name was Lillian Montgomery, and the baby was Emma. Her fever had broken during the night. At the boarding house, Mrs. Landry led him to a small back room. The woman propped against pillows looked younger than he'd thought, perhaps early 20s. Her chestnut hair gleamed in the sunlight, but it was her eyes that caught him. The same startling blue as her daughter's, filled with exhaustion and gratitude. I'm told I owe you my life, Mr. Harmon, and Emma's, she said softly, her voice carrying a slight Eastern accent. I was just passing by. Anyone would have done the same. Not anyone. Her quiet words carried weight. Thank you. Over the next 2 weeks, Wyatt's visits became regular. He found excuses to come to town, drawn by Lillian's quiet dignity and little Emma's gummy smiles whenever he appeared. The baby had developed a particular fascination with his hat, reaching for it with chubby hands that warmed something deep in his chest. Their conversations grew deeper. Wyatt shared stories of his years working ranches, even memories of his lost family. Lillian spoke of growing up in Philadelphia, her love of teaching, and her dreams. But she never mentioned Emma's father, and whenever the conversation turned that direction, she gently changed the subject. As the 3rd week approached, reality intruded. The money Wyatt had provided was running out, and Lillian's prospects for employment remained limited. The widow Peterson in Riverton needs help with her boarding house, Lillian mentioned during one visit. The position includes room and board for both of us. There's a freight wagon heading there the day after tomorrow. Wyatt's chest tightened. Riverton's 30 miles away. The road goes through rough country. I don't have many options, Wyatt. I can't impose on your generosity forever. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. The unspoken question hung between them. Was there a reason for her to stay? Before you decide, I need to know the truth, Wyatt said finally. About Emma's father. About why you were alone on the prairie. Lillian's hands tightened on the baby's blanket. After a long silence, she began. I was married, Charles Montgomery, a banker's son in Philadelphia. After our wedding, everything changed. He had a temper, especially when drinking. First harsh words, then controlling behavior. Eventually, it became physical. Her hand moved protectively to Emma's cradle. When she was born, I feared for her safety as well as mine. One night, when Charles was particularly violent, I knew we had to leave. I took what little money I'd saved and ran. We traveled west as far as my funds allowed, then joined a wagon train hoping to reach California. Quote, what separated you from the wagon train? Quote, a man discovered I was running for my husband and threatened to send word back for a reward. When I refused his advances, he told the wagon master I was a thief. They abandoned us at the next settlement. Her bitter laugh held no humor. I hired a local man to take us to the next town, but his wagon broke down. He promised to return for help. He never came back. Emma and I walked until I became ill. The last thing I remember was trying to find shelter for Emma in the tall grass. Quote, Wyatt absorbed her story, anger building at the men who had failed this woman and her child. Your husband, is he looking for you? Quote, I don't know. He might, for pride's sake. Or he may have decided we weren't worth the trouble. Thank you for telling me the truth, Wyatt said. It changes everything. That night, as a storm raged outside his cabin, Wyatt made his decision. The next morning, he sought out Mr. Henderson with his proposal. Marriage, Wyatt? Henderson raised his eyebrows. That's serious for a man who's avoided putting down roots for 15 years. I can't let them go to Riverton alone. They have no one else. Quote, Henderson studied him. The foreman's cabin has been empty since Jenkins moved to town. 2 rooms at least. If you're serious, it's yours. Wyatt rode into Clearwater with determination and apprehension churning in his gut. At the boarding house, he found Lillian packing her meager belongings. What if there was another option? He asked, hat in hands. You could marry me. Lillian froze, eyes widening. What? Quote, I have a good position at the Rocking H. Mr. Henderson offered us the foreman's cabin. You and Emma would be safe, and perhaps you could start a small school for the ranch children. Wyatt, this is so unexpected. I know it's sudden, but I care about you and Emma. I want to protect you both. He knelt before her. I can't promise I love you yet. I've spent too many years keeping people at a distance. But I know the thought of you leaving makes me feel hollow inside. Maybe that's the beginning of love. Tears welled in her eyes. You're a good man, Wyatt Harmon, better than I deserve. He withdrew a small package from his pocket, revealing a simple silver band. If you'll accept. Lillian looked from the ring to his face, then to Emma, watching them with curious blue eyes. What about Emma? She's not your child. She would be in every way that matters. I'd raise her as my own, give her my name. And if Charles ever finds us, he'd have to go through me to get to either of you. The fierce protectiveness in his voice reassured her. Yes, I accept your proposal. Quote, the wedding took place the following morning in Clearwater's small church, simple and attended by few. When Reverend Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, Wyatt's chaste kiss carried a promise of feelings that might deepen with time. The foreman's cabin stood apart from the main ranch buildings, offering privacy. As Wyatt helped Lillian down from the wagon, Emma still in her arms, he felt sudden uncertainty. It's not much, he began. Lillian touched his cheek gently. It's more than enough, Wyatt. It's a home. Quote, their first weeks established a comfortable routine. Wyatt worked the ranch while Lillian managed the cabin and cared for Emma. Their physical relationship developed slowly, beginning with casual touches that gradually deepened into genuine affection. The turning point came when Wyatt completed the promised crib for Emma, carved with a horse on the headboard. Lillian's genuine pleasure drew him forward for their first real kiss, gentle but lingering. That night they slept closer, Wyatt's arm draped over Lillian's waist. A small step, but significant. As summer gave way to autumn, they settled into family life that felt increasingly natural. Emma thrived, growing plumper and more interactive daily. Lillian blossomed too, the shadows of fear gradually fading from her eyes. She made friends with the ranch wives and began informal reading lessons for the children, fulfilling her dream of teaching in a small way. The first time Emma called him Dada, Wyatt was mucking out horse stalls. Lillian had brought the baby to see him, and Emma, now nearly 8 months old, reached for him and uttered the word with perfect clarity. Wyatt froze, a lump forming in his throat. Did she just? Quote, "She's been practicing," Lillian admitted, eyes shining. "I've been showing her your picture and telling her you're her daddy. I hope you don't mind." Wordlessly, Wyatt took Emma from her arms, heedless of his dirty clothes. The baby patted his stubbled cheek and repeated, "Dada," with satisfaction. "I'm honored," he managed, voice rough with emotion. Comment below what touched your heart most about this family's journey. That night, after Emma was asleep, Wyatt and Lillian came together as husband and wife for the first time, their lovemaking tender and exploratory. "I love you," Wyatt whispered afterward. "I'm not sure when it happened, but I do." Lillian's tears dampened his shoulder. "I love you too. I think I started falling for you the moment you picked up Emma in your coat." As winter approached, Wyatt worried Lillian might find the ranch too remote, but she surprised him with her adaptability. "I never thought I could be this happy," she confessed one evening. "In Philadelphia, everything was about appearances. Here, there's freedom to simply be ourselves." As Christmas approached, Wyatt reflected on the incredible changes 6 months had brought. His solitary existence now seemed empty compared to the rich family life he shared with Lillian and Emma. Until the day a stranger rode into the rocking H, asking questions about a woman with a baby. Billy, a young ranch hand, brought the news. "There's a fella at the main house." Eastern type. "Says he's looking for his wife and child. Name's Charles Montgomery." Cold dread settled in Wyatt's stomach as he raced toward the main house. Inside, he found Mr. Henderson facing a well-dressed man with cold eyes and a permanent sneer. "Mr. Harmon," the stranger said. "Charles Montgomery of Philadelphia. I understand you encountered my wife and child some months ago." Wyatt kept his expression impassive. "Can't say I recall anyone by that name. My wife Lillian, pretty with blue eyes and brown hair. She absconded with our infant daughter Emma. Can't help you." Montgomery's pleasant facade slipped. "Perhaps I should speak with other ranch hands or the women." Quote, "My men are working and the ladies aren't receiving visitors," Henderson said firmly. "The nearest town is Clearwater, about 15 miles east." After Montgomery left, Henderson turned to Wyatt. "That's him, isn't it?" Quote, "Former husband," Wyatt corrected grimly. "Legally, she's Mrs. Harmon now. Take them to the line cabin up by Eagle Creek. It's stocked for winter, and no one would think to look there." Wyatt raced back to warn Lillian. Within an hour, they'd packed essentials and were heading into the mountains on a little used trail. The line cabin was simple but sturdy, built to shelter cowboys during harsh weather. As night fell, they ate a simple meal and prepared for bed, arranging bunks so Emma could sleep safely between them. "What will we do if he finds us?" Lillian asked after Emma fell asleep. Wyatt's hand found hers. "He won't take you from me. You're my wife now, and Emma is my daughter in every way that matters." 3 days passed in tense waiting. On the 4th morning, approaching hooves brought them to alert stillness. Through the window, Wyatt saw Billy on his mare, hands tied to the saddle horn, and Montgomery on his black horse holding both sets of reins. Billy's face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. "Harmon," Montgomery called, "send them out and we can resolve this peacefully." Wyatt opened the door slightly. "Let the boy go." Quote. He was most helpful in locating this retreat. After some persuasion, Montgomery's voice hardened. "What's rightfully mine, my wife and daughter." Quote. "They're not yours anymore. Lillian is my wife, legally married. Emma is my daughter." Montgomery pulled his pistol, pressing it against Billy's temple. "Send them out or the boy dies." "Behind Wyatt," Lillian gasped. "I can't let him kill Billy because of me." "He's bluffing." "You have 1 minute," Montgomery called. The threat to his family ignited rage in Wyatt that cleared his mind. He stepped onto the porch, revolver trained on Montgomery. In that moment, Billy threw himself sideways, unbalancing Montgomery. His shot went wild. Wyatt's first bullet struck Montgomery's shoulder, spinning him backward. The second hit his gun hand. Montgomery screamed, his pistol falling as he clutched his bleeding hand. Wyatt was on him immediately, throwing him face down in the dirt. After securing Montgomery and checking on Billy, Wyatt sent the young cowhand ahead to alert the sheriff. Then they began the long journey to Clearwater with their prisoner. Sheriff Davis was waiting at town's edge. "This the fella causing trouble?" Quote, "Charles Montgomery from Philadelphia. Kidnapped and beat one of our ranch hands, then threatened my wife and child at gunpoint." "Lies." Montgomery spat. "This man stole my wife and daughter." The sheriff turned to Lillian. "That true, ma'am?" Quote. Lillian met his gaze steadily. "I left Charles because he was violent and abusive. Wyatt Harmon saved us and later became my husband in a legal ceremony performed by Reverend Thomas." "Seems the lady made her choice legally," the sheriff said. "What's going to happen is you're spending the night in my jail while I sort this out." Quote. That night in the hotel, Lillian asked, "You think it's really over?" Quote. "Not entirely," Wyatt answered honestly, "but he'll face charges here, and that gives us time to establish ourselves more permanently." Henderson mentioned that Jim Blackwell's selling his place by Willow Creek. Good water, decent grazing, and a solid house already built. "You want to have your own ranch?" Quote. "Our own ranch. I've saved most of my wages." "It wouldn't be grand, but it would be ours. A place where Emma could grow up safe, where you could start that school you've always wanted." Oh, Wyatt. Tears of joy filled her eyes. "I never dared dream of such a future." "Is that a yes?" Quote. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." As Wyatt held his wife close, his gaze drifted to sleeping Emma, the child whose cries had changed his solitary life forever. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but tonight he had found what many search for their entire lives. Not just a family, but a true home. Spring came to Dakota Territory in a riot of wildflowers, transforming the landscape as the past year had transformed the Harmons' lives. Their cabin on the newly purchased ranch near Willow Creek was larger, with 2 proper bedrooms and a spacious kitchen. Charles Montgomery had been sentenced to 3 years in territorial prison. The judge made clear that upon release, he'd face additional charges if he ever approached the Harmon family again. Subscribe if this story of second chances and frontier love moved your heart. The ranch was small, but theirs, paid for with Wyatt's savings. Lillian had started her school, converting a storage building into a classroom where she taught children from neighboring ranches and the nearby reservation. Emma, now 18 months old and walking, was the center of their household, her laughter a constant reminder of how much they had to be thankful for. On a warm June evening, watching the sunset paint the western sky, Lillian took Wyatt's hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "I have news. Come winter, Emma will have a little brother or sister." Quote. Wyatt's eyes widened, then crinkled with joy as he pulled her into a gentle embrace. "Are you sure?" Quote. "Dr. Harrison confirmed it yesterday. Everything looks perfect." "Just like our family," Wyatt murmured, kissing her tenderly. Emma tottered over from examining a dandelion. "Up, da-da," she demanded, raising her arms. Laughing, Wyatt swung her into his arms, settling her between himself and Lillian. "What do you think about being a big sister?" Quote, Emma patted her mother's stomach and declared "baby" with surprising clarity, causing both adults to stare in astonishment. As darkness fell and stars appeared in the vast Dakota sky, Wyatt reflected on his extraordinary journey. From solitary cowboy to husband, father, and rancher with deep roots in land and community, all because he'd stopped to investigate a baby's cry in the tall grass. "What are you thinking about?" Lillian asked. "How lucky I am. How different my life would be if I hadn't heard Emma crying that day." "Some might call it chance, but I believe it was providence," Lillian said softly. "Providence, chance, or destiny, I'm just grateful it happened. I intend to spend the rest of my life proving worthy of this gift." Emma, drowsy now, leaned her head against her father's chest with complete trust. Lillian rested her head on his shoulder, her hand protectively covering the new life within. And Wyatt Harmon, once the loneliest man on the Dakota prairie, held his family close, his heart overflowing with love he'd never thought to find. A love born from a baby's cry and a simple act of kindness, now forever woven into the fabric of their shared life.